Hello and welcome back to F1 Isn't Real. I am your host, Ben Wevel, a strong believer that 22 seconds is, in fact, a long time. And this week, I'm joined once again by my good compatriot, Amesh, to break down the first round of the 2024 Formula One World Championship in Bahrain. V1, good weekend of F1.
Yeah, Ben, thank you for having me again. I think everyone was excited for this weekend. 98 days without F1 can be quite painful for a lot of people, especially both me and you. I was excited for it, and I think following the race, I gotta say it could have been a bit better for as a season opener. We have had better ones in the past, but I think there's still a lot to learn from this first season opener.
I agree with you. I think there is an awful lot to learn, certainly on the track. But I think first it would be remiss of us not to touch on the elephant in the paddock this weekend, as you know, although this is a racing podcast, the off the track elements of Formula One can still be detrimental to the synergy of every single team. Um, and so with that, it is certainly not my pleasure to talk about the Christian Horner sort of incidents, which have taken a turn again for the worse this weekend, with there being some huge leaks of texts allegedly sent by Horner to an unknown member of the team that were leaked to basically everybody to do with F1. So all of the media, the FIA, and obviously all of the representatives of Red Bull, including Jos and Max Verstappen. I think there were some pretty unsubstantiated rumors that Jos had in fact leaked these texts, which I mean, he's a petty guy for sure, but this would be a step beyond. But certainly there is somebody in the Red Bull family that is essentially out to get, I think, Christian Horner. I think there's definitely some kind of resentment towards Horner that's within this Red Bull family. And I think that like divide was really clear from the fact that the Yudivya family the Yudivya family who own the 51% of Red Bull Racing were present in the paddock in Bahrain alongside Christian Horner for the vast majority of the weekend. And so it's clear from that that their allegiance lies with Christian. But as we know on this flip side of things, um, there's been some, rumors about long-term division between Horner and Helmut Marko, who's more associated with the 49% owners in Austria. This is all a real jumble of politics and F1 colliding. Um, and we've seen, Jos Verstappen be extremely critical of Christian's actions. So my question is, how much of an effect will this barrage of information, all of these different aspects, which are just pummeling this Red Bull team, which really should be in the best position coming into this year, but are now at a massive political disadvantage? How is this information going to affect the team dynamic? And how do you think Max Verstappen specifically, who absolutely dominated in, which is pretty, I think it shows from phenomenal resolve in light of all of this. Um, how do you think he's going to be feeling with um, his key group of influences all sort of falling apart at the moment?
Well, I think the last couple of weeks have definitely been quite heavy on the Red Bull team. They've had all of the spotlight in F1 news, and I think the one thing that they did not let affect them was during the race. I think during the race weekend on the track, Max Verstappen was still getting in those laps and practice sessions, and even though he wasn't um, first at the beginning, he took it home to win a Grand Slam. And I think that just goes to show the strength of Max Verstappen as a driver. And Red Bull as a team, as well as undergoing so much pressure at the moment. But the question is, how long can this last, and what else might happen in the future? Because none of us expected any of this to happen, and I don't know whether you're right about someone's out to get Christian Horner, but whatever happens, I think Max is pretty locked in at the moment. But I'm not quite sure how long this will last. I did read some stuff about Jos Verstappen talking to Toto Wolff at the in the paddock, and I'm not sure whether it's a rumor or not. But there was discussion about Max leaving Red Bull and to join Mercedes in the 2025 season. That is a big shock, actually. I think because well, Max and Red Bull have won the last few years, and they've not just won, they've dominated. And going to a team which hasn't won, it's a surprise. Which what this means to me is something definitely is going down within the Red Bull team.
I don't know about the validity of those rumors. I mean, I can imagine that sort of Toto, he's losing this asset in Lewis Hamilton, this figure who transcends Formula One and who's I would say at this point more than a driver and rather a cultural icon. So I think sort of Toto's business strategy for the last, decade with the team has been, Lewis is our front and center. And I think that's now being paralleled by Red Bull, who are using Max Verstappen as essentially this cash cow who is not only raking in the world championships, but is also raking in huge sponsorships. And he too, like Lewis, is sort of transcending into this figure of sort of dominance. My theory with Verstappen for the past few years, I have no sort of evidence to back this, but I think there's going to be a point at which he just gets bored of the lack of challenge that is posed upon him by the sort of Red Bull car, which he is so well adapted to. Um, I think just the tone of his voice over the past few years. So in my opinion, I think he's matured hugely as an individual. I certainly had quite a lot of resentment for him when he was, when he won for the first time in 2021, because I felt that his attitude was incredibly arrogant. But I feel like he's really developed into an incredibly mature driver and very mature young man as well. Um, but I just think the tone in his voice, it's almost as if he's lost the lust for victory. Even when winning championships, the ease with which it happens means that for the past, for even the last 2 years, it sounded, oh, sorry, last year, it sounded like it was almost sort of a rite of passage for him to take victory. And it wasn't this incredible feat which many drivers strive their entire lives to achieve. Um, so I think, to be honest with you, if Max is going to move anywhere, I would have thought it would be out of F1 and towards a different form of motorsport. I think he's signed this massive contract with Red Bull a couple of years ago, which I think takes him up to 20, is it 28?
28, yeah.
Yeah. So if anywhere, I think Max will probably, in my opinion, I think Max is going to run out the end of his contract. I don't think he cares about records in the same way that Lewis Hamilton clearly does. Um, and I think he's going to run out the end of his contract. And I think after that point, he's going to move away from F1, maybe turn to something like WEC or like, I don't know, some other form of motorsport, just where he can regain his sort of love for the sport. Because I think it's really waning at the moment. And I think for such a generational talent who is making so many strides in machinery that so many other amazing drivers like Gasly and Albon and Perez are completely flummoxed by. I think it's um yeah, I think he needs to go somewhere where he's enjoying himself. And I don't know if F1 is going to provide that for him. What do you think, Amish? Do you think that these Mercedes rumors hold any weight?
I totally agree with you. I think that Max might has a high chance of leaving F1 in the future. I don't think it would be in the near future because obviously he has to fulfill his contract. But I think at the momentum he's going, he will be winning, and there will there there will be a possibility that Max can get bored of winning. And it seems unreal to think about it. How can you be bored of winning in Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport? But well, someone's doing it, and it's going to be Max. I'm not quite sure where he would go. Yeah, World Endurance Championship seems like an interesting place to be at the moment. Seems like it's evolving. Maybe maybe that or a different type of motorsport. But I'm more concerned about the near future and the possibility of having another team rise up to and challenge Red Bull and Max because I think that would push him even more as a driver. I think Max is the type of driver who definitely needs competition to definitely stay in the sport. I particularly enjoyed the beginning of the 2022 season. That was my fate. That was when I liked Max the most because he just won his first championship and he was ready to fight again. And I think now he might feel a sense of boredom when
Yeah.
while
I think his
driving in
nerves have
F1.
been dulled. I think he's just his interest is flatlining at the moment. So I think, yeah, it's really important. I think hopefully in this 2026 change, which we'll see, I believe power unit changes in aerodynamic regulation shifts, that there is some kind of challenge from another team. Because I think if not, then Max is seriously, we seriously run the risk of losing him. And obviously, you know, some would argue that if Max decided to hang up his racing gloves tomorrow, that would be a good thing for the sport. But I think that, Max, we should in Formula One have the best drivers in the world. And Max is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the best driver in the world at the moment. And so, yeah, I think it would be unnatural for Verstappen to leave, but I think he would have every right to do so. But this is not the Max Verstappen's future podcast. I'm sure there are many other individuals who will be taking up that mantle. Um, let's refocus, shift back to the racing. And do you think that many drivers have seen this 22-second gap and thought, you know what, championship is over before it's even begun?
Well, 22 seconds is definitely a long time from first to second, Ben. But I think what we have to take into consideration here is that is the question, will this be every race? Because even though this is the first race, there will still be 23 other weekends that we have to go through. And if you're not a Verstappen fan, then you can consider it hope that it isn't. But if you are, then you can sit back and relax. But what I like to talk about is a few other dominant moments with other drivers. Lewis Hamilton, 2008 Silverstone, he won by a very long time. And 2013 Singapore, I think Sebastian Vettel won by 35 seconds.
Mm.
And that's a crazy amount of time, both times, more than the 22 seconds that we
Yeah,
experienced this weekend. But I like to touch on the fact that even though those races existed, it doesn't mean it will happen every time.
I believe
In the case of
Lewis's victory was in wet conditions as well, wasn't it?
That's true. Okay, that can create an that's a different factor. But I'm saying despite Vettel's 9 wins in a row, there was there's always going to be a sense of randomness to it. I
Yeah.
think you can't always expect a max win with with just the beginning of the season because we don't know what's going to happen.
I wish I could I wish I could say that I think that anyone's going to pose a serious threat to Max this season, but in my heart of hearts, I know that it's going to be an